Justin Fields.
Second in double-digit sack season. Fields moves in the pocket and gets away. Justin Fields takes off, turns a sack into a big gain and a first down. Justin Fields, otherworldly, stays in, steps out.
Or Caleb Williams.
Hero play! Hero play! 4-6!
Caleb Williams.
Washington in the slot. Williams was looking there, closed off. Comes back. Boy, that head is on a swivel. It is really impressive. And now a touchdown throw to Brendan Rice.
Or Justin Fields.
Well, they always have a plan to stop Aiden Hutchinson.
Yep. White was matched up with him again. Fields climbs, Fields throws! Touchdown! 1-2 punch delivers! It's Fields to Moore for the lead!
This was a question that Bears fans everywhere had been debating over long before last season began, even with the uncertainty that the Bears would be in the current situation that they are in, holding the number 1 overall pick for the second year in a row. What's up YouTube? UnCommonVision here, and in today's video, in this podcast-like video to be more specific, I talk about the future of the Chicago Bears, and why they are a team that the NFL may grow to fear for years to come. With that said, let's get to it. So before I discuss the future of the Bears, let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back to early 2023, when the Bears secured the number 1 pick, ironically thanks to Lovie Smith, the former head coach of the Chicago Bears, who at that time was the first-year head coach of the Houston Texans. Heading into the last week of the 2022 regular season, the Texans were in a great position to lock in the number 1 spot for the 2023 NFL Draft. All they had to do was lose. Simple, right?
The day, the Bears have just clinched the number 1 pick in the upcoming NFL Draft.
Winning that game did two things. It allowed the Texans to end the season on a high note, finishing with a 3-13-1 record, and it allowed the Bears an opportunity to secure the number 1 overall pick for themselves with a loss to the Vikings, which they did. Losing the number 1 pick to the Bears did not sit well with Texans ownership, and Lovie Smith was fired soon after, despite it being his first year on the job. A great black head coach, let go, because he chose to try and win games and improve the team with the pieces he was given, rather than tanking for the number 1 overall pick. You know, just hearing that played back in my ear really pisses me off because I respect Lovie Smith a lot. He was easily the best coach we had since Mike Ditka. And seeing how Lovie wasn't really afforded a fair opportunity to turn Houston around, it disgusts me, vastly. But, I digress. The Bears unironically earned the number 1 pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, and instead of using that pick on quarterback Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, the Bears stuck with Justin Fields, and traded the number 1 pick to the Carolina Panthers for a haul. 6. The Bears got Carolina's number 9 pick and number 61 pick in that year's draft, a future first-round pick in the 2024 draft, a second-round pick in the 2025 draft, and oh by the way, the Bears got the Panthers' best wide receiver DJ Moore. This was a great trade that GM Ryan Poles pulled off at the time. However, if we fast forward it to the end of last season, me calling that trade great was really an understatement, because the Panthers were so bad last season that they ended with the worst record and secured the number 1 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. That same pick, that the Bears currently own. Yeah. Hindsight being 2020, Ryan Poles essentially robbed the Panthers and then went to the police station to tell the cops that he did it. That's how great that trade turned out to be. But now we have a problem. What do we do with the pick? This year's decision on whether to use the number 1 overall pick or to trade it for a haul of picks and a player or two is not as cut and dry as it was last year. At least, That's what I thought before we traded Justin Fields to the Steelers. And as much as I loved him, as much as I wanted him to continue as QB1 of the Chicago Bears, Fields just could not solidify the QB spot during his time in Chicago. Granted, he had little help. He only had two reliable options to throw to last season. Receivers were dropping passes, even ones that were literally in their lap.
Fields, chased by Garrett, flushed, looking, sets up, throwing deep. Hail Mary, end zone, deflected, tipped and intercepted. 5.
Mooney had it. Mooney had it on the ground.
Furthermore, the O-line was not doing their job in protecting him in the pocket. They had some games where they protected him well, but for the most part the protection just wasn't there. And as for the play calling, excuse my French, but that shit was just fucking trash. There's no sugarcoating that. I'm sorry, it was fucking trash. Real talk, I could have came up with a better game plan for Justin Fields than what Luke Getsy did these past 2 seasons, or even what Matt Nagy did when he was head coach. Justin may not wanted to ever throw the coaches under the bus intentionally, but I sure as hell will. Justin Fields, from the very first time he set foot into Hallis Hall, to the last time he exited a few months ago, has never been set up to succeed as a Chicago Bears quarterback. Matter of fact, Fields will have greater success in Pittsburgh than what he had in Chicago. You can call that a hot take if you want to, or maybe I'm just going out on a limb. Either way, what I'm saying is 100% true. In the words of CM Punk,
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
now let me be abundantly clear, I am not saying that Fields didn't have any fault in his own lack of success in Chicago, because he did. Justin is not your prototypical quarterback, which serves as an advantage for him as well as a disadvantage. Because he is so gifted as a runner, as a scrambler, because he's faster than even some running backs and wide receivers, he has the luxury of being able to navigate in and out the pocket to find someone open to throw to, which is something that he is great at doing. He is electric. However, the problem with that is he has the tendency to need to see someone open before he throws it. He's not an anticipatory quarterback. He doesn't throw people open like the elite quarterbacks do, at least not consistently enough to warrant the Bears keeping him over drafting Caleb Williams. And whether or not that's something that he can develop into remains to be seen. We saw glimpses of him being able to throw with anticipation, to throw receivers open, but those glimpses were too far apart from one another, and as it stands right now, Justin Fields is not an anticipatory quarterback. So he has the bad tendency of not throwing passes on time, hanging in the pocket too long, and taking bad sacks when passes could have been made. Not to mention his fumbling problem. You see, at Ohio State, Fields could get away with such flaws because he wasn't playing NFL defenses every week, and he had a great O-line protecting him and numerous playmakers to throw to who got open with relative ease. On the other hand, during his time here in Chicago, his flaws were on full display, which hindered his development as a starting quarterback. Whether that changes in Pittsburgh, whether Mike Tomlin coaching him, and him sitting behind Russell Wilson and learning from Russ will accelerate his development, only time will tell. Furthermore, the unforgivable lack of adequate coaching, and the lack of enough playmakers around Justin also hurt his development. Which is why we hired Sean Waldron as the Bears' new OC in January, signed DeAndre Swift and Gerald Everett in free agency, and traded for Keenan Allen to complement DJ Moore and Cole Kmet in the passing game. Every move done to bolster our offense this offseason will give Caleb Williams something that we never gave Justin Fields: a fair chance to succeed, and a solid foundation to take off from.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Now whether or not Caleb flourishes with the weapons added to this roster will depend on himself, and Shane Waldron's ability to develop a quarterback. Sure, Waldron was given credit for Geno Smith's resurgence in Seattle, but how much credit does Waldron really deserve? How much of Gino's success was because he had Shane as a coach, how much was because he finally figured out how to be a respectable NFL QB, and how much was because he had enough pieces around him that were conducive to his success? We don't know exactly, and I think it would be foolish for us to contribute his success solely on Waldron being a coach there. And that same line of thinking has to be applied to Jared Goff's breakout year in 2018 as well, when Waldron was the Rams' passing game coordinator that season. That being said, Waldron's NFL career as a coordinator and play caller is promising enough that I believe that Caleb will be just fine. Plus, it doesn't hurt to have a Keenan Allen on one end and a DJ Moore on the other end to throw to. Ryan Poles has done a good job providing pieces for his rookie QB to work with. People won't be able to accuse him of repeating the mistakes of Ryan Pace, because when Pace drafted Justin Fields, Fields didn't have much to work with. The O-line was beyond horrible. Allen Robinson clearly had no chemistry with Justin, as Mooney did once upon a time, before a real number one WR showed up and Mooney's production got lost in space somewhere. The only guy he could consistently rely on these past 3 years was Cole Kmet, although they had their miscommunications as well. And the coaching, oh my god, the coaching. As I said before, it was cheeks, utterly cheeks. Tell me you don't know how to build a game plan around Justin Fields without telling me you don't know how to build a game plan around Justin Fields. But, I digress. Overall, Poles has done a good job as the Bears GM, which is why I feel confident saying that the Bears have a bright future regardless if we draft Caleb Williams number 1, or if we trade down, collect multiple picks, and draft Jaden Daniels, or even Michael Penix Jr., although I highly doubt that the Bears will draft a QB other than Caleb. It's just. Yeah, who am I kidding, it's not happening. Ryan Poles isn't a dumbass like Ryan Pace was. And I say that with complete disrespect, because I do not know, what the fuck, compelled Ryan Pace, to not only draft Mitch Trubisky, but to trade up one fucking spot, to get him. Oh, teams were just clamoring for Mitch Trubisky, nobody was clamoring for no fucking Mitchell David Trubisky, nobody was finna use a top 10 pick on this motherfucker other than you Ryan Pace, you dumb, bitch. Sorry. I am sorry. I tend to go off the rails every time I talk about the 2017 draft. I am calm now, I promise. Moving along. As I was saying, barring anything catastrophic, it is a great time to be a Bears fan right now. Regardless if you were a Justin Fields fan like I was, or just a Caleb Williams hater like some of you are, when you look at the big picture of what we currently have, you can't help getting excited for the upcoming season. We have a defense that finished top 5 last season, Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, and an improving secondary and D-line. We have an offense with 2,000-yard receivers in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who by the way missed 4 games last year and still had the best year of his career, a pretty good tight end in Cole Kmet, and a solid dual-threat running back in DeAndre Swift. We also have an experienced play caller on both sides of the ball, and not to mention 2 top 10 draft picks this year. I feel, dare I say, ridiculously optimistic. Crazy, right? We fans don't have many chances to say that about any Chicago sports team nowadays, but I genuinely feel that way. Whether we make the playoffs this year, or make a run for the Super Bowl within the next few years, those are topics for future videos. But will we be a better team this year? Without question, the answer is yes. Speaking further about the Bears' future, I had originally planned on discussing on what the Bears should do with the number 1 pick, and whether keeping Justin and trading the pick to add more assets for Fields was a good move or more specifically the right thing to do. I planned on creating a legitimate case for both options at QB. However, with Justin now in Pittsburgh, it's a foregone conclusion on what we'll be doing at number 1, and I'm all for it. I believe in Caleb Williams and his potential to become one of the NFL's elite quarterbacks, especially in Chicago, whose fan base have been starving for stellar quarterback play for decades. With that starvation, however, comes desperation from the fans who will be impatient. For me, Caleb doesn't have to be CJ Stroud day one, he doesn't have to be Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Patrick Mahomes, or even Aaron Rodgers. Caleb just has to be Caleb. He doesn't have to throw for 400 yards, and 5 touchdowns with 0 picks in his first NFL game, although, don't get me wrong, it would be nice to see. But I'm not calling him a bust if he doesn't. Hell, he could throw 4 picks in his first NFL game, and I wouldn't be overreacting and calling him a bust the following morning, while wanting Ryan Poles' head on a platter. I'd be disappointed, sure, but I wouldn't be in my garage sharpening my great sword preparing for the great purge of Hallis Hall. No, Bears fans, we won't be doing that, at least not this year, I would hope. Now, as for what we do with the 9th pick, depending on who falls to us, we can either use the pick on one of the following players: LSU wide receiver Malik Nabers, Washington wide receiver Rome Odumsey, Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, Notre Dame left tackle Joe Alt, Texas defensive lineman Byron Murphy II, Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner, or Florida State edge rusher Jared Verse. Or we can trade down and obtain additional draft picks and draft one of the defensive players that I mentioned earlier, or an O-lineman to further improve the protection for Caleb Williams. The Bears have a lot of flexibility in how they can use the 9th overall pick. Personally, if Malik Nabers or Joe Alt are taken before the 9th pick, which is a good possibility that they will be, I think we should either draft tight end Brock Bowers, with the logic being Tom Brady had Gronk, Mahomes has Kelsey, and Caleb has Bowers, or we should trade down with a team willing to swap first-round picks and give us a second-round pick for this year's draft, because as it stands right now, after the 9th pick, our next pick is the 75th pick, which is in the 3rd round. Trading down would give us more draft capital and avoid reaching for an O-lineman or a defensive player, that is if we don't move down too far. Ideally, I think we go down to the 11th or 12th pick, and draft an edge rusher there, either Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. Then I'd draft an O-lineman in the 2nd round, preferably someone who can play center at a high level, and in the 3rd round I'd draft a wide receiver, Brendan Rice from USC to be more specific. Hear me out, I think that Rice would be a solid receiver for Chicago. He has good size, good speed, and he already has a rapport with Caleb Williams since they played together at USC for the past 2 seasons. I think pairing the two together is a good idea, that is if we don't draft Nabers or Odumsey at 9, or trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr., which recent rumors suggest is a possibility. I'll believe that rumor when I see it come into fruition though. Don't get me wrong, a receiving core of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and MHJ would be hands down the best one in the NFL, but I hesitate on giving up future draft capital, more specifically Carolina's 2025 second-round pick, in order to get MHJ, especially when we could have Nabers, Odumsey, or Bowers waiting for us at 9. I know I may be speaking foolishly here, I get that, but did you see Carolina last year? That second-round pick could easily become the 33rd pick of next year's draft, which would essentially be a very late first-round pick that we would own. You saw who we got last year and who we will be getting tonight because of Carolina, right? Imagine who we will be able to get next year, either at the trade deadline, or at next year's draft, because we own that particular pick. It ain't like the Panthers are going to be good next year, so that pick is likely to be a very high second-round selection, and it will also be a valuable piece of any high-profile trade that the Bears decide to do from now until the 2025 draft. That is if we trade the pick instead of using it ourselves. Now, having said that, if MHJ falls to 5, or 6, something reasonable for the Bears to pull the trigger and move up to draft him, while I'd be hesitant to do it because of what we'd have to give up, I would ultimately do the trade. Having both Caleb Williams and MHJ in a Bears uniform, the best quarterback of the draft, the best wide receiver of the draft, would be insane. We would literally be having our cake and eating it too if that scenario end up playing out. Only Ryan Poles can decide if it does or not. At this point, Poles has my full support no matter how he uses the draft picks that are at his disposal. He hasn't been perfect, but he has done a remarkable job of not only cleaning up Ryan Pace's mess, but also putting the Bears in a great position to succeed in the immediate future. Now how far we actually go remains to be seen, but, thanks to Poles, and partially thanks to Lovie Smith as well, it's an exciting time to be a Chicago Bears fan. Get that bandwagon ready people, 'cause we're coming. Well everyone, that'll do it for this video. As I stated earlier, the future of the Chicago Bears is very bright. What we do in tonight's draft will largely dictate how long that brightness persists for the Bears. We have many options to choose from, all of which I feel leads us in the right direction. If you liked this video and would like more Chicago Bears content, please like the video and hit that sub button so I will know. If you disliked it, then please hit the dislike button. Any and all comments are welcomed below. And until next time everybody, this is your friendly internet disabled person, UnCommonVision, signing out. In polls we trust. Bear down.